Okay, yeah, thank you for having me. I will see if I can quickly start a timer as well. Yeah, I'll just do this one. So, so what I'm going to talk about is public engagement on CCS, and here particularly insights from the PilotStrategy project, as you just said. So I'm looking into, I will present some survey insights because we did surveys throughout the countries involved. And I also want to touch upon some broader lessons that we've learned from the PilotStrategy project. First of all, now I've talked about the project, but you need to maybe get a quick overview of what the project is all about, that I'm going to focus on for the next 15 minutes. And here's a slide that should maybe capture the most basic elements of the project, because PilotStrategy project is a European-funded Horizon 2020 project that is going on for 5 years. It actually just ended in April, so a few weeks ago. And what it was all about is that it's about the scaling up of CO2 storage in pilot study regions, so in Portugal, Spain, France, Greece, and Poland. And what we did, so the people involved in the more societal aspects is that we conducted stakeholder engagement and community engagement in the countries involved. But we did not only do this, we also analyzed the awareness and the acceptance levels of the communities, and how this relates and can inform the public engagement. And we also looked into some broader dynamics as well. How is this intertwined with the regional and community dynamics and with policy context? So how are the policy frameworks in the countries affecting the communities and acceptance and engagement activities? Now here in this slide I'm zooming into the work package where all the societal aspects were analyzed in. And here you can see this reflected, because in the exploratory phase we did an analysis of the policy alignment, or colleagues of mine did that. Also we did some regional profiles where we looked into some regional characteristics, and we wanted to then derive how this could inform the engagement within the communities. And so we did not only citizen engagement, but also stakeholder engagement. For this we had stakeholder committee meetings with quite some number of stakeholders in the different countries. And all of this resulted in recommendations for future engagement pathways that also can now extend beyond the project lifetime. And something where I also brought some results, just to get an overview of some of the findings that we've generated in this regard. We've also measured public acceptance during surveys in the countries, and we did this at 2 points of time, towards the beginning and towards the end of the project, to see how public engagement activities might have changed maybe some of the attitudes of the local communities. And yeah, this is something which I want to show you some results from. Here are some of the main objectives of the surveys, but also of our other engagement activities. So what we basically wanted to do was to investigate public and societal acceptance in the selected regions. We wanted to provide a comprehensive understanding of the attitudes the public has, what their concerns are, what information needs they might have. And this was also within the project lifetime used for integrating these social factors into the evaluation of locations, because in Portugal and France there was still some site selection processes going on, but also this was meant to inform the foundation for public and stakeholder engagement. So just quickly overview of the methods of the surveys, because I want to show some findings so that you can understand what they are all about. But without going into too much detail, as I said, there were 2 waves of surveys. We aimed for the surveys to be representative for the regions. So we had, in the first wave, all of the countries involved, and in the second wave only the focus regions, where also the engagement activities were undertaken, so that we can monitor over time some differences, and this were also always a mix of, like, depending on the country, it was either online service, phone service, or a mix. And contents of the service were aspects like familiarity, the expected benefits, or the evaluation of the technology, acceptance, and some further topics as well. However, as always with survey data, there's also caution there needs to be caution when interpreting the data, which is particularly the case when we try to compare the first to the second wave results, as the regions might be a little bit different. And this is also the reason, and also the time that I have right now, the 15 minutes, why I'm only focusing on the latest results here today, which were those of last year, of 2025. But I think you can see some general trends in these findings already, because you can see that the familiarity in the regions that we studied with the technology CCS is rather low. So only about up to 16% actually know what the technology is. And those in red are those that are unaware of the technology, have never heard of it. And this is like at least a half of the people that we asked about. And it's self-declared, so it might actually even be higher. But you can see some differences between the countries. Maybe there's more information going around in some countries than others, or in some regions. Maybe also depending on the project lifetime. Despite this low level of familiarity, we see that the evaluation of the technology, there's quite some openness towards the technology. We see a lot of people, especially in Portugal and Spain, that evaluated technology rather positively, with French respondents in the specific region being a bit more undecided. But we can also see, we see that some persons don't provide an answer, like missing values, don't know responses, and also a lot of neutral responses, up to a third of people. So this might reflect the low levels of familiarity, which might also reflect that if you provide more information to these people, that might be susceptible to change their opinion for one direction or the other. So this has to be kept in mind. Here you don't see anything totally different from before. Before it was about, after we provided them with some basic information in the technology and the project, we asked them to evaluate the technology in general, and then we also asked them whether they would accept the implementation of the technology in their region. And here you can see similar trends than before, with also about a half being rather in favor, actually, of the technology. We also did some regression analyses where we could correlate some of potential factors with what the acceptance evaluations were in the regions, and here we saw some determinants that were rather strong throughout the regions. For example, whether people felt that it, or expected the impacts of the technology on the environment to be positive or negative was correlated strongly with how they evaluate the acceptance of the technology. And similarly, but to a little bit lesser extent, also the expected economic and societal impacts of the technology, and how they perceived the decision-making, whether they expected it to be fair or rather fair. This actually varied quite a bit between the different countries, which actors they trust in, how they what they expect decision processes to be like. And this highlights the importance of transparent and inclusive engagement strategies. We saw some differences regarding trust in industry. So in general, we saw that there is some trust in industrial actors, but there's differences between actors from within the region and those external industry actors from outside. which was quite considerable differences that we found here. So now we have some overview of some of the insights that we've generated in the PilotStrategy project with regard to social acceptance, but all the engagement activities, the survey, they also led to some recommendations, and here just quickly want to highlight that we've, now that we've finished the project, we also were able to take together all of our different findings on social acceptance and public engagement and put them into a policy brief. So if you're interested to see our recommendations from the PilotStrategy project for policymakers, local authorities, and project developers, feel free to go to the PilotStrategy website and check them out. What we highlighted in this document is that there is a need for transparent information sharing, and that engagement needs to be a two-way street, so you can't only provide information but not open the door for also some to voice expectations of the communities and the stakeholders. You have to make room to be able to also let this incorporate or integrate this into the project design as well. You need to be aware that you have to do it early on, not just like a day before implementation, to be able to react on these suggestions. And you should be aware that you have to adapt your engagement to the specific local context and dynamics. And in order to build lasting relationships, in order to also build trust, you should also make sure that you involve key agents, for example, from the regions, local authorities, and other stakeholders. So going back to this figure that I already had it, I wanted just to show you that we also have some specific recommendations for the different stakeholder groups that we derived from our project findings. And for example, for the policymakers, this is mainly from the analysis of the policy documents, so not so much from the surveys or anything, because we had multiple different methods that we've used. But what you can see here is that that we really found that it's important that the role of CCS for climate change mitigation is made clear for all stakeholders to get a shared understanding of what CCS is and can be. And you also need clear regulatory framework, because then all the stakeholders can be on the same page. There can be some transparency and some trust in the frameworks. And we saw that there's low level of knowledge, and you need to have some awareness campaigns, maybe some debates on this, so that the general public can, and also the stakeholders that might be relevant, can form an understanding or an idea of what they think about when they think about the technology. And also, I think it's clear that economic viability is also relevant, transparent funding mechanisms, and so forth. Local authorities do play a role as a facilitator, connecting project developers, local communities, so that they can really facilitate this community engagement if they get in, if for example, project developers achieve to include them in this process. Also because they know the local concerns, they can help with addressing them, they can help with communication strategies, stakeholder consultations, getting all the regional actors involved. And what they also should do or could do is to monitor local benefits, so that they can then communicate those to the general public, so that they can also see what CCS can also bring in terms of infrastructure, employment, or other aspects. So my last slide, looking at the time, I will keep it quick, but for project developers, I think it's something that I already said. It's relevant to make space to incorporate stakeholder feedback, also in the project design. And you have to be aware that this needs some resources as well. And you should really try to focus on transparency in order to be able to generate trust. And for this, you also need credible mechanisms to make sure that maybe some of the benefits that might be promised in the process can also be realized. And as I also said already, regional contexts, they need to be, you need to be aware to adapt to those. So that's it from my side. Thank you for listening. I'm looking forward to the discussion later on.
Thanks.